Hello and welcome. This is the first episode of the Indy True Crimes podcast. I am joined by my wonderful co-host Shannon, who you know her from Men and Women Talk the Martina show. You know her from her own program, A Set Apart Woman. How you doing, Shannon?
I'm good. Happy Wednesday to you. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm happy. I had a very long day. The reason why I had to leave just a minute ago was because I parked in my neighbor's driveway because I had to run and use the bathroom and I forgot to pull my car out. Thank God he called, right before the show, so I was able to get my car out of his driveway. So he's real cool. But I'm here and I'm happy to be here. And we are very blessed. We have an author, we have a musician, we have a filmmaker, and an activist on our program tonight. This brother, after we say hello, I'm gonna go into how I've come to learn about this brother. But welcome to the program, brother DeWayne Hendrix. How you doing, DeWayne? Did we lose?
I'm outstanding. How y'all doing?
Excellent. Now let me say this before we get into how before we get into exactly who you are and whatnot. People who know me know that lately I've been talking about this podcast called Atlanta Monster, right? Because I've been following this case for a long time about the Atlanta child murders. And during this podcast, I would say the number one standout in the podcast was this brother right here. And I felt like when I saw this brother on the show, I felt like when we're not taking questions just yet. When I saw this brother heard this brother on the podcast, I thought a couple of things. I thought, you could tell that he really had more substance than most of the other people that were featured on this program. And also, I felt like he had way more to say than he was given an opportunity in this platform. So I want to start off, Brother DeWayne. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us some background into who you are.
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Yes. I think there's a little delay or something.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, my name is DeWayne. I'm sorry.
No, I think there's a little delay, but go ahead. You're good. Uh-oh. All right, go ahead. All right. We're having a little technical difficulties. Just come back in, DeWayne, and you should be good to go.
Well, we're making a turnout tonight.
Yeah, it's a great turnout. How's everybody doing? DeWayne, just come back in and we should be good to go. But while we're waiting for DeWayne, of course, you can follow me at Kente F on Twitter, Kente Ferguson on Instagram, and of course, our website is indyradio.org, indyradio.org. Shannon, how can we get you?
Well, I don't have the lovely notations on my screen like you do. I'm not that fancy. So IG, Facebook, Twitter, Shannon Ford like the president, Jefferson like the president.
All right. So also, for those who may not know, we have a programs that we do every Monday called Men and Women Talk the Martina show, where we talk about relationships and through the lens of male and female interaction. Not really a debate. We don't really debate. It's more a friendly conversation between men and women.
We fight all the time. Don't play. Don't be trying to sugarcoat these folks.
Well, I got sugarcoat just a little bit. Just a little bit. So as we wait for DeWayne to come back in, I don't know what happened. You might want to refresh DeWayne. So I want to let's recognize people in the chat room. You want to do that?
Oh, I might not see everybody. Let me scroll down.
Mm-hmm.
So I see D. Anthony Davis. And I accidentally clicked on his picture, so now it's showing me his face. Oops. Mm-hmm. DeWayne, who is trying to get back in the Box, Ebony, Yolinda, Big Bad Brad, Lady Love, Dre, Kuulo. I hope I said that right. If I didn't, I apologize. Michael. I gotta throw it. But I was funny picture. Tiffany, aka Trap Nizzle, Ronnie, E, Luke, Steve, Steph, and Defining. I hear you, Anthony. I'll click on it later.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Who is Defining though?
All right. Okay, so you gotta love these technical difficulties. Tell us about your show. Are you gonna be on this Sunday?
I need to, because I really need to finish out that series. But I am trying to get some things together in my life. Like I told you, I was applying to grad school. I got to finish my video interview. So once I finish that this week, then yeah, probably. We'll see. Might be Sunday. So I can get that done. It's the last Sunday of September, so I might as well just get out of the way.
It's under what, live video?
So let me ask you this: how did you how is your book coming along? Because I know you are working on that.
I'm so excited. Well, I submitted my one sheet, which is more like 2 sheets of minor corrections from our meeting on Saturday. And I'm just waiting for my next book. It's called the beta book, and it's more so editing on formatting. So I'm really excited. It's the best part. I can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was we were trying to get this going. So let's while we're having these technical difficulties, you gotta love live radio. Oh wait, here we go. All right, I was gonna have to tell some knock jokes.
And I was like, you reading some poetry? I mean, I could find a book.
Yeah. So okay, we got DeWayne back. I apologize, people. It happens with the live radio and video. So y'all don't have to listen to my my knock jokes now. So all right, welcome back, man. All right, let's take it
to the Matrix, Neo.
Right. All right, so you were telling us, give us some background about yourself.
Okay, so as you know now, my name is DeWayne Hendrix. Not to get too far into my whole bio, but how I guess ended up being a person that you would consider to be or whatever people want to label me as is I actually was in the military. I held a top secret SCI clearance in the military. It's one of the highest clearances that you can get, especially at the rank that I was in the military. I went into the military with my education with a top secret clearance. And I kind of was exposed to a whole lot. And what I was doing on a day-to-day basis was always different from what was being reported on the news. I can't talk too much about, my job in the military because they could still come arrest me if I say the wrong things. But I'll say that's kind of like what introduced me into a person to become this person that the world knows today. So I ended up being involved in this freedom project. It was always something that I knew wasn't right from the time that I was 6 years old. I actually said when I was a kid that they lying on that man. I told my grandma, I said, they lying on that man. He didn't do that. I'm gonna help him get out of jail. And those was my exact words when I was 6 years old. And lo and behold, in 2013, Wayne Williams is at Hancock State Prison with a guy that I had been friends with since I was in the 1st grade. And basically, he told me that Wayne had learned about who I was and that he wanted me to film.
And for those who may not know, to give us let's talk about the case and who. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so once again, we're having some technical difficulties. Okay, we lost him again. Okay, you know what's so funny is we were on last night for like 2 hours and everything was like perfect, and then when the show starts, it's like everything, right?
That's okay. We're going to work through these dilemmas.
It's because she joined Tiffany.
We break and give open tonight, huh?
Yeah. And thank you, Tiffany, for coming in.
Yeah, he is, Ronnie. He sure is. He don't want this story to be told.
It's the man. It ain't nothing but the man.
Well, sing us a song, Kente, while we wait.
The devil is busy. Yeah, that's right. He's a liar. He's a liar. So he's coming back.
Sing the song, Kente.
What you want me to sing?
The trouble. Come on. I'm waiting. Hello.
I can't sing. Not right now.
I mean, I thought you said.
I'm trying to keep listeners, not lose them.
Oh, you're not gonna lose. They support you. Kids. You see this group? They support you.
Yeah. They start supporting you until you start doing something crazy like sing.
He said, "No, ma'am, don't make him do it."
Oh, that's cold. All right. So, all right. While we're waiting back for DeWayne, I see Brooklyn has joined us as well. I see Big Bad Brad. I see.
Mom is on the show. Mom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's my mom. Yeah.
Mom.
Yeah. That's crazy though. Last night we were on for a long time, and it was working just fine. So I'm gonna have to.
He's telling you better behave. I was like, I know he's not talking to me.
Yeah. So, how many people in this chat room are aware of the Atlanta child murders case?
You want to push one?
Yeah. Press 1 if you're okay.
He's not, but he pressed 1. Dre, which one are you? Are you aware or are you unaware?
Okay. All right. Here we go. All right.
Welcome back.
Last night was perfect, right?
Right. We didn't have no problems last night. I think it's probably because so many people joining is taking up the bandwidth, though.
Okay. All right. So, all right. So you were as you were.
Okay. Where did it leave off at?
You were talking about how you were in the military, and then you had said when you were a child that you were going to help Wayne Williams get out of.
Right. So I'm 6 years old, and I'm in my hometown, Brunswick, Georgia, Hopkins Home Apartments, apartment number 18. I still remember it like it was yesterday, and they showing Wayne Williams on the news, and I said, that man didn't do that. When I grow up, I'm gonna help him get out of jail. And you know, anybody from my hometown that knew my grandmama, she used to curse like a sailor. She was like, boy, sit your narrow ass down. Them crackers will kill you. I told her then, I said, well, they'll have to kill me then because that man didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and lo and behold, 2013, Wayne is at Hancock State Prison with my homeboy that I've been knowing since I was 6. We was in the first grade together, went to school together all the way up into high school. And at the time, I was working on a documentary, and one of the homeboys had just came home and put him in contact with me. And he like, what you doing, bro? What's up with you? And I'm like, man, I'm working on this documentary. He said, "Hey man, I'm in here with Wayne Williams. He want somebody to do his documentary." And short story a little bit shorter. That's how I ended up meeting Wayne Williams and becoming involved with the Freedom Project. Initially, I was just supposed to be doing a documentary. And what ended up happening is, because of lack of cooperation and the business agreement that we had, we couldn't actually complete the documentary because all of the people that were involved wouldn't cooperate. Maybe one day I'll be able to tell y'all the full story. At this particular point, I can't give out all the names and everything else, but eventually when all of this is over and Wayne is out of prison, I will be able to tell y'all about all of the celebrities that done tried to come in the middle of this and manipulate it and make money off of it. I'll be able to tell the full story and give out all the names and everything else, because that's going to be a very key element for people understanding why this man is still in prison, because he should have been out a long time ago. And actually, there are some people who are potentially going to go to prison because people who are involved in this basically went against the law and violated different procedures in the way that this case was handled. Wayne should have been out a long time ago.
Now, I asked while we were having the technical difficulties, how many people were familiar with this case, and the vast majority said yes, but there were some that weren't. So let's kind of give them a snapshot of what is the Atlanta child murders, because I met some people today who had never heard of it. Right. So without give them a brief kind of rundown what it was and what happened and all that.
Right. And I'm glad you allow me the space to do that, because that's another misconception. It was more adults that was killed during this time period than it was children. That's something that people don't really know or understand. And what was really happening, at this particular time, it became an epidemic because there were children being abducted, found murdered, sometimes days later, sometimes months later, and some of the bodies we now know, may have even been identified improperly. But this was an epidemic that was going on from 1979 to what they say 81, but it actually continued. When you look at the list of missing and murdered, it was 29 names that made the list of missing and murdered. But there was another, I want to say about 63 names that didn't make the list. And the list was supposed to be the criteria, but none of the people, if you look at the list doesn't even really have a real criteria pattern. So this was all something that was fabricated by the FBI to be able to try to make a justification to close these cases, because they didn't want the real truth coming out as far as what it was really all about. But what was happening at that time was, this was a pivotal moment in time for the city of Atlanta and for Black America, because at this particular time, Atlanta was a major metropolitan area, and it was Black mayor being elected, Black fire chief, Black this, Black that, city councilman, everything. So it was a situation where all of the power positions in local government were beginning to be occupied by Black people. We talking about a city that's 80% Black. So on one scale, what people need to understand about this is that the city government was sabotaged. So when people hear about the Klan involvement and white supremacist involvement in some of these murders, there's a lot of truth to that. And what was really going on is that it was a certain group of people in the city of Atlanta that was trying to sabotage the new regime that was taking over. So that's why it became so political from a mayoral standpoint, a chief of police standpoint, a public safety commissioner standpoint, because now it was like, oh, y'all want to hire all these niggas to do this and do that? Y'all want to elect them in the office? Okay, we're going to show y'all. So that's pretty much one of the things that people need to understand about what was really taking place. And what ended up happening was after Wayne Williams was arrested, there was still 25 more murders in the next year and a half that never was reported on the news or anything like that. You know, the last being, or next to last being a little girl named Lucretia Bell that was 13 years old that was strangled. But her cause of death was asphyxiation. And the big thing about the list is that they were trying to say that these people were strangled. But when you go and you look at the cause of death on some of them, one little boy was shot. Another person was stabbed to death, you know, and then it may be an 8-year-old boy on the list, a 12-year-old boy, but then it's a 12-year-old little girl and an 8-year-old little girl. And then they was saying that these criterias match, but they really didn't. And out in the last 8 people that made the list, 6 of them were adults.
Right.
You know?
Including the 2 men that Wayne Williams was convicted for.
Right.
And let's go a little bit into the bridge situation, because me and you had kind of talked about it, and it is the biggest bit of horse pucky. Excuse my I don't think that's French. Okay, so I'm gonna paint a picture for you, for the people out there. So as the story the story is told, that these geniuses realized that the way that they were getting the bodies into the was it the Chattahoochee, right? Was that they must have been throwing the bodies off a bridge. So they claimed that for I think it was about a month. Was it a month?
They say a month.
They had detectives and cadets stalking all of these bridges from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Right? This is the story. On the last day, because they decided that they weren't going to allow it no more because it was too much man hours and all this. The last day, they got the biggest luck. If that was in a screenplay, you would call BS.
Right.
That now, mind you, they claimed, I think they said they had 14 people stalking this bridge. They claimed that a cadet that was on the bottom of the bridge heard a splash, didn't see nothing, had a flashlight, didn't see anything, and they said that Wayne Williams' car had stopped or something. They thought it had stopped, and now, mind you, they had allegedly 14 officers whose job was to stalk the bridge to see if someone's throwing it out. No one saw shit because they never said that they seen it. All they said they saw, they heard the car slow down, and then we're supposed to believe that Wayne Williams, who was about 5'7", he was pudgy at the time, that Nathaniel Cater, the guy that he allegedly threw off the bridge, was 6 foot tall, something like that. He was about 150, 60 pounds, something to that effect. Right. He was dead too, so he weighed more. So we're supposed to believe that he went on the bridge and he stopped, got out the car, opened up his trunk, took that body and threw it over a 5-foot barrier, then closed his trunk, got back in his car and kept on pushing.
Right.
And no one saw nothing. They just heard a splash. Does that sound realistic to you guys? What kind of super Negro did they think he was that he could do that and did it fast? Allegedly, he was quick with it, right? If you believe that, it's the biggest crock of bullshit I've ever heard.
Right.
So that always bugged me from the minute I first heard it. So now
but they have a witness.
They don't have a witness though. See, and because somebody said once, why is it that they didn't? Why is it that if they're lying, why didn't they just say they saw him? And I told DeWayne, this is my theory was always is just in case it was proven later that, if there was some evidence that the exculpatory, then they were lying. Like you couldn't, if they said they saw him in there, so they gave themselves enough gray area so that they could cover their ass later. So that 14 people, no one saw shit. And their whole job was to stop on the bridge. And then second of all, he worked for different news outlets as I forgot what you call those people, but basically he had a police scanner, and he would go and take pictures of crime scenes. So he knew they were on the bridge.
Right.
So he would have to be
let me lend some insight to it, because when we fully do enough research, we'll understand that these people operate in innuendo rhetoric, and even when they tell the truth, they tell half truths. They don't tell the full story. So Wayne gets painted as this weirdo and all of these different things, but they don't know that this boy had actually owned a radio station at 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And when Andy Young met Wayne Williams, he said, "This may be the smartest kid I ever met in my life."
Right.
So we talking about somebody who grew up, and both of his parents were educators, and he grew up knowing most of the people in the Atlanta power circle, all of the civil rights activists, and they all knew his family, Joseph E. Lowry, all of them, you name it, right? So Wayne was always a very different kid. Of course, we know now in 2019 that the different kid may be considered a weirdo, but more than likely that's the genius kid. We didn't understand that it collectively at those times, everybody thought every little boy supposed to be running a football.
Right.
Wayne wasn't that type of kid. He was always a intellectual. So he was the kid that was taking pictures at football games. He always wanted to be a journalist and things of this nature. So he started his own radio station at age 12.
Right.
And
he had an FCC license, by the way.
Right. And this is why he had camera equipment and police scanners and things of this nature. And one of the things that he ended up doing, because one of his childhood best friends was actually beaten by a store owner in the local community that he grew up in, and Wayne was with him. And it ended up being a race riot in which Stokely Carmichael and some of the Black Panthers was involved with the Atlanta Police Department. And Wayne actually got busted in the head as a little boy when he was like 9 or 10 years old. So this is what gave him the passion for injustice and policing the police and things of that nature. So he would actually go and do certain things, because at one point he was big on reporting police corruption to the police department. So these are all things that they never let people know about when they go into his background. They just try to paint him as this weirdo, to make it seem as if he was doing a whole bunch of stuff that he shouldn't have been doing, or whatever the case may be, but they don't give the full backstory,
Right.
So that's important for people to realize. Secondly, when we get into the bridge scene and what took place that evening or that early morning, whatever you want to call it, they were supposedly staking out the bridge, like you said. It wasn't 14 people. It was only 4 people on the bridge.
Okay.
All right. 2 of the people that were on the bridge were supposedly police recruits that never became police officers.
Right.
So now in 2019, if we know about crisis actors and we know about all of these different things, you tell me who these 2 people really were, first off.
Right.
Because one of the people, Jacobs, is the person who said he heard a splash.
Right.
All right. When you get into what was said in the record, the car never stopped on the bridge.
Right.
No one said they saw the car stop on the bridge. So that would mean that Wayne threw a 6 foot, like you said, 5'11",
Dead man.
some, because that was a big deal. They lied about that on Atlanta Monster and said he was only 5'5" or whatever. Jimmy Ray Payne was the one that was short. Nathaniel Cater was tall.
Right.
Nathaniel Cater was tall and slender. But a 5'11", 6 foot, 160-pound man, he threw from a moving car over a barricade. You know, it's no way that it could ever humanly happen, first off. Secondly, the other two people that was there, one person is named Special Agent Gilliland. He was an FBI agent.
Mm-hmm.
He mysteriously died in a helicopter crash.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then the other person that was there was a detective for the Atlanta Police Department, and he admitted that he was doing his income taxes that night and he didn't see anything that took place.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Now, check this. What happened was this. When you get to the Jackson Parkway Bridge, if you ever been to Atlanta, there's an interstate in Atlanta called 285 that there's a big circle that goes around the city, right? If you get off an exit called South Cobb Drive and you drive about a quarter of a mile, you're right there at the Jackson Parkway Bridge. So it's actually right there at the Atlanta-Cobb County border. On one side is considered Cobb County. On another side is called Atlanta. Anybody from Atlanta would know that if somebody was doing that type of dirt, they would never do it in Cobb County, bro. Listen, I hustled on the streets of Atlanta. We say count on being busted. That's what Cobb County means. Come on, black boy. You understand? So, you know, anybody that's from the city would have known that, you know, that wouldn't even be something that somebody would even try to pull off, first and foremost. Because you do something in Cobb County, the police is like, they there. You know, 2 minutes, they there. It's that serious. But that's neither here nor there. The point that I want to make, though, is when the person said what they said about, is there somebody on the bridge? She said, I heard a splash. There's somebody on the bridge. The person who was at the top of the bridge, he said, I just moved out of the way of the headlights. If he just moved out of the way of the headlights, how could somebody be simultaneously saying it's somebody on the bridge?
Right.
If Wayne was just entering the bridge and you moved out of the way of the headlights, how could a body have already hit the water?
Right.
There's no way possible that could have happened. Another thing that people don't know about the bridge and what took place that night was that they lied and said that they didn't check the river that night. They actually held Wayne on 285 on the side of the highway for about 5 hours while they drugged the river.
Right.
They didn't find anything. Nathaniel Cater's body is found about 3 or 4 miles up the river, right? 5 days later, I want to say. The thing about that is that we actually had a geologist, not me personally, but Wayne's attorneys, his team had a geologist look at that river, and it's something in that river called an eddy. And what it is a embankment in the earth that rises up. So it's almost like a hill in the middle of the river that slows the flow of the river down, which means that the body would not have been able to go past that particular point. the body would have got stuck right there at that eddy in the river.
Right.
So there's no way that his body would have been able to be found where it was if the bridge was the entry point.
Right. Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
No, I hear you. I feel you, man.
So,
Definitely.
you know, one and see, these are the things that, you know, we told this to the podcast people. I done did interviews, 3-hour interviews. And this is what people don't understand. The listening public or the seeing public, they don't understand that when you see somebody do an interview and you see a 15-minute clip, that person could have interviewed for 3 hours, and they took and pick and choose what they wanted to from that 3 hours and air what they wanted to air.
Right. And we're gonna get into why we think that they may have done what they've done, did what they did. But one thing I want to get clear too for those is, now he was never convicted for killing any children. These were 2 adult males.
Right.
And Nathaniel Cater, for those who don't understand, what was his reputation, Nathaniel Cater, of what kind of guy?
Well, both of these dudes were street dudes.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And Nathaniel Cater had a background where he was known to be a fighter. He was in the martial arts and all sorts of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So everybody who I know that I interviewed or I talked to that knew Wayne from the streets and knew Nathaniel Cater, all of them say, man, if Wayne didn't have a gun, ain't no way he whipped that man and did something to that man.
Right.
You know.
He was known for taking out 3 people at a time, and he was no chump.
Yeah, him and Pat Man Rogers was another one that was, you know, known for that. You know.
Yeah, and you might want to tilt your camera up just a little bit because we just see your mouth. But
oh wow. Okay.
Now one more aspect I want to talk about is one of the things that they always tout as the slam dunk evidence against Wayne Williams is the fibers.
Right.
And so can you talk about what you've come to know about the fiber evidence?
Well, it's not what I've come to know. The good thing about it is that the Department of Justice began an inquiry into the FBI crime lab. So anybody could go look this up. A man named Dr. Frederick Wrighthurst. He was a FBI crime lab investigator, and he was on the Oklahoma City bombing. Right? And the Oklahoma City bombing was not what the world thought. Just to segue into what you and I have spoken about with Mena, Arkansas, the reason they blew up the Murrah building in Oklahoma, because that was where all of the ATF information that would have indicted Bill Clinton and George Bush and connected them to the Iran-Contras and all of the drugs that was coming into Mena, Arkansas. So that's why they blew that building up, you know. But Dr. Whitehurst blew the whistle on the FBI crime lab and all the misconduct that was taking place during the investigation into the Oklahoma City bombing. When that happened, it opened the doorway for the Department of Justice to now go back and examine certain cases that took place with the FBI crime labs, specifically cases that involve expert witnesses and cases that involve hair or carpet or any type of fiber analysis, because these things are a pseudoscience, you know. So what ended up happening was in 2003, they began this inquiry, and they've come to the realization that in about, I want to say they said 85% of the cases, the FBI gave faulty witness testimony or fabricated evidence to sway towards a conviction. And Wayne's case was one of the cases that was examined, you know. So the whole thing about the carpet fibers and everything else, this shouldn't have never been a reason to try to come after somebody and put somebody in prison, because that analysis would go both ways. If these children were coming to Wayne Williams's home, and they were getting carpet fibers from Wayne Williams's home onto their clothing that would go in the opposite direction as well. There would be fibers, there would be hairs, there would be different evidence that would be from those children in his environment as well. And there was never any evidence of any of the children being in Wayne's home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so with the carpet fiber analysis and the hair fibers and all of these different things that they said, this was all a means to create a case where there was no case. You
Mm-hmm.
understand? And then Wayne's trial ended up being a trial by media. It was a trial that was based on public perception and what they had already done with all of this news reporting. These cases were in the news every day for about 4 years in the city of Atlanta and most of nationwide television. So the people just wanted it to be over with.
Right.
You know, they would have accepted anybody pretty much that they put on that screen and said that they killed them at that particular point. You know, so I'm sorry.
I said people want closure.
Right, right. So the whole thing about the carpet fibers and everything else, you know, it's some people that got to fall on the sword because of that, because they basically have made up a whole case. And what they never told the public is that there were 5 of these little boys that were found with Caucasian hair fibers in their underwear.
Mm-hmm.
So whose hair fibers were those? And why were they in these little boys' underwear?
Right.
You know, and that's the real deal behind the cover up and why they have done so much to keep the truth about these cases from coming out, was the fact that what was going on in Atlanta was connected to a nationwide pedophile ring.
Yeah. And just as a side note, one of a project that I'm about to work on is a long form podcast about the Franklin cover up,
Right.
which I always believed is in connection with this case, the Mena, Arkansas, and a bunch of others. And then there's some stuff in DC, and it's literally the same time.
Right.
But yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Right. So this nation, and for the people who are watching and listening, don't believe nothing I say. Everything that I tell you, you could go look it up and you're going to find the facts to support it. Go look up the Delta Project.
Mm-hmm.
It was a project called the Delta Project, and it was also called the Odyssey Project. The man who was basically the main organizer behind it was a man named John D. Norman.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a assistant named Bill Paskey. It's been proven that Bill Paskey received payments from John Wayne Gacy, the infamous serial killer from out of Chicago, who had supposedly killed 33 boys and had them in a crawl space in his home. What the world doesn't know is that John Wayne Gacy wasn't acting alone. There were other people. When you see these movies and you see these people who in the movie and they tie up people and they torture them and they put them through all of this stuff before they kill them, that's exactly what was happening in Atlanta. That's exactly what was happening with John Wayne Gacy. Another man that was connected to this pedophile ring was a man named John Corley, and he was responsible for 23 murders of little boys in Texas. And he didn't act alone. You understand? The person.
But with John Wayne Gacy, the thing that's similar to these two stories is that most of his murders were also asphyxiation and strangle, except for one, right? I have an infatuation with serial killer. So yeah,
Right.
he's one of my
Right.
faves.
Okay, so since you know about that, all right. It's another set of murders that took place in Columbus, Georgia, where it was a group of elderly women that were murdered, and the man name was the Stockton Strangler.
Mm.
Right. A brother actually died last year on death row, a man named Carlton Gary, for these murders, and he didn't have nothing to do with it. And again, it's somebody else. And dig this. One of those women that got killed in Columbus, Georgia, was from the Woodruff family. The Woodruff family is the people who own Coca-Cola. They like the family that they really own Atlanta. They run
Right.
Atlanta. You know, these people had a sophisticated network. The guy who set it all up, how it would work was you go here. You going to Chicago. Okay, when you go to Chicago, call this person. And each one of these pedophiles would go to whoever the person was in Chicago, or whoever the person was in Los Angeles, or whoever the person is in Omaha, Nebraska, or whatever. Larry King was the guy in Omaha, Nebraska, you know, with the Franklin cover up. Jerry Sandusky in Penn State, you go holler at Jerry if you going. And they was doing this all over the place. So that's why it's always a quick cover up. Wayne Williams, when they arrested Wayne Williams, his trial was like this, and it was out of the way. The same thing with Jerry Sandusky. Oh, let's get it out of the media, out of the way. You know, they do these things because when it's all said and done, there's so many people, judges, politicians, businessmen that are high up on the totem pole as far as social stature. They got money, they got influence, they got power, and when the heat gets turned on, they find a scapegoat, they find a patsy, and they move on to another place. And that's exactly what was happening. So that's why when you said what you said about Omaha, Nebraska, like that's why all of this stuff was happening in these different places, and it was in such close proximity. You know,
yeah, not far at all.
Right. And I'm just going, but I'm missing some things. So let me go back. What they would do was each one of these men would have cadets. So a grown man, 40 years old, however old he is established in the community. He finds, 16-year-old, 17-year-old boys that already have a history of deviant behavior. He takes them under the wing. He gives them some sort of stability, and he gets them to be the ones that become his cronies that lure the 10-year-old boys and 11-year-old boys into these situations. And they call them cadets.
Right.
Right. And what ends up happening is the people would come from different places. So for instance, in Atlanta, and when I did the interview with Information Discovery, I told them about the black pedophile rings, but I also told them about the white pedophile ring in Atlanta. And they didn't put that in the piece that they did. Yeah, because the white pedophile ring was the pedophile ring that was connected to the Delta Project. And the man who was the head of the white pedophile ring in Atlanta eventually went to prison for child pornography charges. And when they went in his house, they found about 30,000 pieces of child porn.
Wow.
Mm.
And in what's called the Brady Files, this is something very important that people need to understand. And this is something that I'm going to need support from the community in, is because I'm actually getting with the parents and we're going to get together a petition so that we forced them to release the Brady files and the police investigative files on these people's family members so they could see everything that the police knew but excluded from telling the public. But in the Brady files, specifically about this man that I'm telling y'all about and two other people, a kid told them that he and three other boys that ended up being murdered all had sex with these three men, you know, and the main perpetrator, the man who I'm telling you about, who was the head of that ring, he ended up going to prison. But guess what? You can't find his prison record in the Georgia State prison records.
So he ain't go nowhere.
Right. The people, and I'll put it to you like this: the people that I know committed these murders, when I go try to find a prison record, because another man was a man named Jamie Brooks. He's the person who killed Clifford Jones. That's the one who I did the interview with, Emmanuel Williams, his older brother. He went to prison and died in prison of AIDS. You can't find no information on the Georgia Bureau of Prisons about it. Another man, I can't say this man's name because he's still alive, but you can't find no information about this man. And we know that he's the person that killed LaTanya Wilson. We know he killed Nathaniel Cater and potentially Jimmy Ray Payne and Pat-Man Rogers, right? This particular person was a hitman and a drug dealer,
right?
And a pedophile, right?
And a pedophile. Throw that in there as well.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can't find no information on it. Another man who was so notorious in the city of Atlanta, his name was Wyatt Earp on the streets of Atlanta. Right? They called him Wyatt Earp, and he ended up having an eyewitness to one of the children. I'm trying to put my phone on the charger, y'all, so bear with me. One of the children, though, that was killed was a boy named Charles Stevens. And Charles Stevens was seen with this man every day for about 2 weeks before his disappearance. And on the night that he disappeared, he was seen in the back of this man's car wrapped in a blanket, motionless.
Wow.
I interviewed the man who saw him.
Wow.
You understand? And the man who saw him met the dude for a drug deal that night. He bought the drugs from the dude. He looked in the back of the car, and the dude told him, "Don't worry about that." He said, "Hey, man, that ain't none of my business," and he left. He said the next morning, the dude called him and said, "Hey, man, I need to holler at you about something." He knew he was coming to kill him because this dude was notorious for killing people. The dude used to rob drug dealers, and his robbing crew would kill somebody purposefully. Even if they just gave the money and the drugs up, they would still kill somebody. So the one time that they forgot to kill somebody on the scene, he shot one of the members of the robbing crew in the back seat of the car and kicked him out of the car in front of Grady Hospital, downtown Atlanta. That's how ruthless this dude was. So when he called the dude that morning and he said, "Hey, man, I need to holler at you about something," dude went and turned himself in on a warrant and told the people what he knew, because he said he knew when Buddy called him that he was going to kill him.
Right.
So he went ahead and turned himself in.
There's two things that I want to get to.
Okay.
And I'm going to get to Michael's question about the KKK involvement. But before I get to that, a lot of things that I've seen, they will say that the kids weren't sexually molested. That, like, you know what I'm talking about? They say that they didn't find no signs of that, which didn't make sense to me. It just didn't make sense to me. So before we get into the KKK part of this, what is your knowledge about that aspect?
And that's a lie. I mean, like I said, I mean, one of the places in Atlanta where the pedophile rings was taking place was a house on Gray Street, downtown Atlanta, right by where the Falcons used to play, and they called it Uncle Tom's Cabin. The man's name was Tom Terrell, and I actually years ago put a video on Facebook where he was on the news admitting that 10 of the boys had been to his house already, and he ended up going to prison for child sex related crimes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but they said they couldn't find any evidence of child molestation, right?
Right. Well, I mean, that's the lie that they told, because that's a way to keep the people from knowing about this pedophile ring that was operating. Because now, what does this do to the narrative that they created if now the people of the city of Atlanta know that they had knowledge of these pedophile rings when this was going on?
Yeah.
Not only did they have knowledge of these pedophile rings, but some of the Atlanta power structure were actually pedophiles themselves. You understand? And actually were willing participants in helping cover this up.
Right, because they were protecting their own ass.
Exactly.
So Michael wants to know about the KKK element.
Yeah, so it's something called the GBI 8100 files, in which there was investigation into members of a white supremacist group. They always talk about the Sanders brothers, but the actual leader of the KKK was another man. I want to say his name was Dr. Fields. I can't remember his first name, but he was actually the leader of the KKK in northern Georgia at that particular time. And right there on that bridge where they stopped Wayne Williams was actually where the Klan used to hold some of their rallies. You know, but the GBI 8100 files were actually supposed to be destroyed. And what happened was, when Wayne went to prison, someone knocked on his attorney's office door and left a box full of information. And one of the things in that box was the audio recordings of the Sanders brothers admitting that they killed a kid named Luby Jeter. You know, and there's a lot of speculation, and a lot of people think that most of these murders were done by the KKK. I hate to bust everybody's bubble, but that just wasn't the truth. You know, a lot of these children were actually lured out of the environment by people that look like us. People have to understand that the climate in 1979, 1980, 81, we not already trusting, you know, people outside our community. So, you know, old white pedophile ain't gonna just be able to come in different parts of Atlanta and people not be like, what you doing over here, folk? So it just wasn't the case like people think. The Klan did have some involvement in it. And, you know, like when we was talking about Tariq Nasheed, the Buster, and what he was trying to push, that line he was trying to push on it, you know, they just want to dismiss it as black and white so that they could keep pushing this same racial narrative, you know, black versus white. But I tell people this all the time. If you only see black and white, you never see the gray areas. And that's where the truth always lies.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. There's people that will work with the enemy to destroy the community.
There you go.
And you just, because, you know, they always say that, oh, it had to be a black person that committed the crime. It had to be a black person that committed the crime. And I always felt like, to a certain degree, that there is truth in that, being that, you know, they were working as agents. like going back to Larry King,
Right.
you know,
Right.
you need someone like that to be their
Right.
agent,
Right.
to do their heinous stuff.
There you go.
Okay, so there's so much to get to, and there's so much to talk about, because this case opens a lot of cans of worms and whatnot. Excuse me. Yeah, sorry, someone down the wrong pipe. Let's talk about. Okay, what people don't really understand, I don't think, is that there is there's the media, there is law enforcement, and then there is the power structure. They all work hand in hand, right?
Absolutely.
And for example, like the CIA, for example, right? The CIA basically controls the media,
Right.
you know, and a lot of people, I know it's hard for people to understand. Everything that you see in the mainstream is propaganda.
Right.
From
Operation Mockingbird is the name of the actual CIA operation in which they infiltrated the news media. You're absolutely correct.
And so when you watch something on television, you know, because most people, they form their opinion on this case based on the reporting, right?
Right.
And reporting, one way you can tell is all the reporting seems to be very similar, you know? And so going back to the Atlanta Monster, you know, it's a podcast, right? So
Right.
with a podcast, you think of it as this independent endeavor, right? So it's not backed by the man, right? It's something that, so they're not, you know, the powers that be is not controlling it, right? But
That's
in
a lie.
this case, I mean, but that's the thought, right?
Right.
So when they were, I was listening to some of their behind the scenes stuff, and they were talking about, they were taking ads out on TV One and billboards and all of that. And look, I've been doing podcasts for a long time. Definitely not at their level, but I don't see podcasters, even the really successful ones, able to take out commercials for a podcast, you know what I'm saying, and billboards and all of that kind of stuff. So my question to you is, where do you think they got their funding from? Where do you think, and what do you think? Because it just seems like it's, and there's a big, in October, Wayne Williams is coming up for parole too, and I find it interesting that there's all of these things that are revisiting the case.
Right.
So do you think that this is some sort of effort to muddy the waters 40 years later?
Well, what it is many things. One of it is usurping the movement. So I'll give people an example of something that we just saw that was very polarizing, that the exact same thing took place. Do you remember when the Seahawks and the Patriots played in the Super Bowl?
Yes.
Okay. So all that week leading up to the Super Bowl in the media, and all that year, really, Marshawn Lynch had been handling the media and telling basically black people, like, you know, I'm not no sucker. They not going to get no soundbite out of me, or they not going to get me to say something that, you know, they going to be able to twist around or whatever.
Right.
Come Super Bowl week, the boy get up at his press conference and say, "What's up to all my Africans out there?" Right?
I remember that. Yeah.
Now, this a real one from Oakland, right? That is getting brothers that's in the NFL that's making money to go back and invest money in their own communities and do things for their people, right?
Right.
This is somebody who's been doing this from day one. All of a sudden, half-white Colin Kaepernick, who grew up in the suburbs, never gave a damn about no type of real struggle that black people had going on or anything like that. All of a sudden, he come out and he kneeled because he lost his job, and he know he about to be out of the NFL, And now he become the poster child for the struggle for liberation for people in America. And he got cornrows in his hair all of a sudden. And he got on the Black Panther leather jacket like Huey P. Newton with the afro. And he on GQ magazine. And he got Nike deals and everything else. And people don't see the twist and the propaganda of what they was really doing. You know, they usurped everything that Marshawn Lynch was bringing forth and made this boy a poster child of what the, instead of people identifying what the real struggle and what the real movement should have been about. So that's why Colin Kaepernick's movement never went anywhere, and it was nothing of depth that he ever said. Anybody could say, oh yeah, they killed black people. What did he say that had any kind of real structure to it? What did he ever say that showed that he had any type of real compassion or anything like that? It was all propagandized, and that's what they continually do. That's what they did with Black Lives Matter, with the movement that was taking place in St. Louis, where they actually executed that boy Darren and a few other good brothers that was really fighting for the truth to come out. You know,
Aaron King Seals.
Yeah. So that's exactly what Atlanta Monster was. It was a means to put somebody else on this high platform, put all of these millions of dollars of advertising and everything behind them, put them on national TV, and get them to tell a whole bunch of lies. They studied the interview that I gave them and went on TV and said the things that I said to them word for word in the interview. You know, and they even lied. He lied about how he found out about the Atlanta child murders. He lied and said that his business partner told him that they needed to work on that case next, when in all actuality, a lady who did private investigation work on the show Up and Vanished that he did before Atlanta Monster, named Robin Martinelli, actually introduced him because he asked her what else she was working on, and she said, well, I want to do the Wayne Williams case next. And that same woman, Robin Martinelli, when I gave the speech at City Hall, when the cases were reopened, if anybody wants to go look, you can go look on the internet, look at the speeches, and you'll see a white lady with blonde hair standing behind me. That's Robin Martinelli. That's the person who gave Payne Lindsay the information about the Wayne Williams case. He never even knew nothing about this before then, you know. So that's what it was all about. And you're absolutely correct. They put millions and millions of dollars into a podcast. And I know for a fact that part of the promotional budget came from Apple.
Wow. I see. I didn't know that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And one more thing that he did so people can know, when they asked him certain questions, he never would mention my name.
Right.
So they asked him, how did you meet Wayne Williams? He goes, I met Wayne, and he paused. And he goes, I met Wayne through a guy named DeWayne.
Right,
right.
right.
It's like, you don't do that. If I told somebody, hey man, I'm gonna do this podcast with this brother named Kente, he does a podcast on indie radio, blah, 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 I'm gonna run it down to him.
Right.
You understand? Right. What professional person gets on TV and don't say a person's last name?
Right.
And don't say what their credentials are, what made them the person that was able to get you in contact with Wayne Williams. And then when he did the interview on the Breakfast Club, he says, oh yeah, I met Wayne Williams through some guy that was on the internet talking conspiracy theories.
Right, I remember that. Yeah, I was real disappointed on that.
Yeah. And you know, the same thing that you said about the podcast, that's what everybody has told me, that they was basically saying like they felt like the podcast was fluff until they actually heard me begin to speak, because nobody was talking about anything tangible. Right. You know, and the only other person that I will give is two other people that was on that podcast that I will give credit to. It's a lady named Kirsten. She actually is the person who started the website At Kid, because that's what the FBI called the Atlanta child murders, the At Kid cases. So anybody could go look at her website, and she has a lot of information out there. It's atkid.com, I think. And then another brother named Vincent Hill. Vincent Hill was actually a cop and a private investigator, and he actually had a lot of information, and they did the same thing to him. They cut a lot of the information that he gave them, and they didn't use it. You know, it's people asking questions too.
I have Steve. He wants to know, DeWayne, can you speak on why the proposed mural of the Atlanta child murder victims would be a detriment to Wayne Williams' ongoing attempt at freedom?
Right. You know, that's something that they do to play on the heartstrings of people and to make this continuously an emotional exchange versus getting down to the real deal and the nitty gritty as far as giving the real evidence and coming out with, you know, what investigative efforts that they've actually made, what findings have they had. They're not going to do that. They're going to continue to try to do the same things. And that's one of the things that I talked to the family members about, and I told them that y'all got to stop allowing these people to use y'all as their pawns.
Yeah.
Because these are the same people, the same offices. It don't matter to me if it's Mayor Bottoms or it's Maynard Jackson. She occupied the same seat that Maynard Jackson did, and she's a politician. So at the end of the day, a politician is going to do what's going to be best for their political career. And who knows, that may be the reason she opened the cases in the first place. You know, that's what people have to think about. Because how I look at it, if she was really sincere about this, she wouldn't be opening the cases and putting somebody like Will Packer on a committee.
Yeah, Will Packer, yeah.
How does Will Packer is the dude who did Girls Trip.
Right.
You understand? Like, how does this dude have anything to do with a real police investigative effort that's about some children being murdered, cold cases? Like, what does Will Packer have to do with that?
Right.
You know? So our people, we got to start thinking intelligently, and we can't just accept what these people put in our face and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. No, it don't.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's like reparations, and they have a bunch of actors up there talking about reparations. Yeah, it's hilarious. All right, so I'm gonna skip to your question, Steve, but I'm gonna go to Anthony first. DeWayne, is there any connection to Ted Turner, founder of CNN and TBS, in connection to the Atlanta child murders?
Next question. I don't want to say names like that, but people could rest assured that it's some very affluent people. Some very affluent people.
Now, Steve has been checking out my notes because I was going to get to Sid Dorsey because this is a very important part of it.
Right.
So for those who may not know, and people keep talking about Pizzagate as well.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
this
Sid
was
Dorsey.
Pizzagate. This was Pizzagate before Pizzagate, and the people that's now doing the stuff like Pizzagate, they got their blueprint from this man. I'm telling y'all, if y'all look up the Delta Project, it's gonna all make sense.
Oh wow! So Sid Dorsey, and then there was his partner. I can't remember his name, who later was gonna open it as well, the case. But let's start off with Sid Dorsey. Briefly, who's Sid Dorsey, and what is his connection to this case?
Okay, Sidney Dorsey was one of the lead homicide detectives in the Atlanta Missing and Murder Task Force that they created. So they created a task force that consisted of local law enforcement and federal law enforcement agents. Sidney Dorsey being one of the main ones, him and another man named Louis Graham. and they really should be celebrated as far as this case goes as heroes. Sidney Dorsey actually sued the city of Atlanta because of some things that happened surrounding the Atlanta child murders case, and he won. But Dorsey was one of the people that had eyewitnesses to the LaTanya Wilson murder. The reason why the LaTanya Wilson murder becomes so important in this case is LaTanya Wilson was the little girl that was taken from a window. Nathaniel Cater, who is the person who they say Wayne threw off the bridge, was a maintenance man in that apartment complex. He had just changed out the window pane in her window the day before, and his fingerprint was found in her windowsill. Nathaniel Cater's fingerprint was also found at another crime scene. It was 30 fingerprints found at these crime scenes, and none of them matched Wayne Williams. But one of the victims, Nathaniel Cater, his fingerprint was found at 2 of the crime scenes, one being LaTanya Wilson. He was a bag man, and he actually grabbed her out of the window and gave her to someone else. There were eyewitnesses that saw this man with the little girl under his arm like a bag that evening. Louis Graham and Sidney Dorsey went to a grand jury to try to get an indictment on this man to try to save Wayne Williams, and they were made to stand down by federal law enforcement. Sidney Dorsey ends up becoming the sheriff of DeKalb County, which DeKalb County is the second
American sheriff.
Yeah, and it's the second largest county in the state of Georgia. He finally loses to a man named Derwin Brown, and supposedly the day after he loses the election, he hires some hitmen that are his sheriffs to go kill Derwin Brown. Supposedly, that's what happens. So right now, Sidney Dorsey is sitting in Reedsville State Prison doing a life sentence. When I got involved with this case, one of the first people I reached out to was Sidney Dorsey, and I wrote him a letter, and he wrote me back. And if the next time we get on here, I'll actually find the letter and I'll read it to y'all. I actually read it on the courthouse steps because he agreed to do an interview with me. And when it was time to go to do the interview, when I contacted the Georgia Bureau of Prisons public relations officer, they closed all interviews for all inmates in the state of Georgia.
Wow.
So, and this is something else that people need to understand is very important. I had producers from CBS writing Wayne's prison, trying to get an interview with Wayne. They put Wayne in the hole. So, like, every time it's something that someone of stature like that reaches out to somebody like me, and it's not something that they already are controlling, they'll throw Wayne in the hole, and we won't talk to Wayne for 2 weeks.
Wow.
So that's the type of stuff they do. With Sidney Dorsey, they didn't even allow me reading the letter from Sidney Dorsey to be on the news. This is the biggest case that ever happened in the city of Atlanta.
Right.
You understand? And I'm holding a letter from Sidney Dorsey, who was one of the lead detectives in the city, connected to another one of the most infamous cases in the history of the city. And I'm reading what he said, in which he said that the souls of those children are screaming out from the graveyard. I won't rest until justice is served, and I owe it to Wayne's mother. Yeah. That's what Sidney Dorsey wrote me, and they wouldn't let us interview him.
Wow.
Yep.
That's something else. Yeah, when I heard the whole Sidney Dorsey, like he seems like an intelligent man to do some,
Yeah.
to assassinate
Come on,
somebody.
man.
Yeah,
Come on,
it didn't sound like BS.
Come on, man.
Now, a question that we have from Tiffany, who's from Atlanta. She wants to know, can you speak on Wayne's musical aspiration, getting him caught up? So there was a lot of talk about the group Gemini and about him looking to start like the next Jackson 5. That kind of.
Yeah, so I mean, because Wayne, he wanted to be in the music industry so bad, and he was working with kid groups, it make things seem a certain type of way. You know what I'm saying? Like it make it seem as if, he was going out to recruit talent, so that he could potentially be having sex with these little boys or whatever, based on the narrative that they try to create. And that's one of the things that they do, especially in the murder of Patman Rogers. Patman Rogers was another person that was a martial artist and was a known fighter, and he was from one of the roughest neighborhoods in Atlanta, a neighborhood called Thomasville Heights. And Wayne and his group had flyers that was in that neighborhood, and Patman Rogers actually came to an audition, a talent audition, or whatever the case may be, because I guess he was an aspiring singer, and what Tiffany is saying is also accurate, because the woman who supposedly calls Wayne's house Cheryl Johnson, which I think was a plant. I think she gave a wrong number and a wrong address, and Wayne was out looking for the address because he was supposed to go back to her house that morning. But I think personally, that woman Cheryl Johnson was a plant.
Yeah, that sounds kind of fishy, but not in the way that they try to make it,
Right, because his mother is the one who took the information down.
Right.
It wasn't. She didn't call Wayne and talk to Wayne on the phone. He wasn't there at that time. It was his mom.
There's something too that rubbed me the wrong way when it came to the podcast. Is one thing I hate is when somebody says something like this. They'll say, Shannon, she be on some BS, but I'm not going to talk about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they would do stuff like that,
Right.
So you heard it now, you might as well talk about it.
Right. So, for example, they were saying that there was something about his father, Homer, Wayne Williams' father, and they said they got some information, but they said, "Oh, we're not going to get into it," but it makes him look really bad. I'm like, then why would you say that at all? Like, and either come out with it,
right,
and then you can deal with it, or just shut up, right?
Right.
So, and other things that I've seen, they make it almost seem, because if you want to believe what they're saying about Wayne Williams, the carpet fibers and the dog was at their home. So that means that he was killing these people with his family and his carpet,
right.
So mama wasn't like, that's crazy. So talk about the parents, Homer. They try to make it seem like he was some kind of strange guy or something, and they were saying that he was at every funeral taking pictures. He was the only photographer. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, he worked for Atlanta News Daily, which was a black newspaper in Atlanta.
Right. So of course he would be at every event.
Yeah. And like what people got to stop doing, man, is like allowing people to say somebody weird. You know what I mean? Because like, for instance, like people now talk to me and they know that I done wrote books and everything. And they be like, damn, D, like, how you be knowing all this? And I be wanting to say, like, I used to have to be a clown in high school because I was too deep to hold normal conversations with y'all niggas. And y'all would have thought I was weird. But
right.
I always been a thinker, and I always been the person where everybody else see this over here. And I'm like, how these niggas don't see this over here? I always been like that. You know what I mean? It just so happened that, you know, I'm really from the hood. I grew up in the projects, and I was an athlete and a lot of other things. So, you know, like I had uncles and big homies that was dope dealers, and pops was in the game. So I had a street sense to go along with all of that. So it allowed me to be able to mask the fact that, you know, if I would have been telling people what I thought about shit at that age, I would have been a weirdo too. You know what I mean? So it's just like, when people say that type of stuff, it just be frustrating to me, because really and truthfully, like, most of us really are weird if you want to just go by what typical people in society look at, because I'm different than what most people that's my age that look like me. My thoughts are way different than them. But it don't mean that I'm weird. It could mean that I'm a fucking genius, or it could mean that I see a whole bunch that they don't.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Like, it's funny.
Some people saying some real good stuff in here, man.
A lot of questions.
Can I? And I want to say this too. We have an open seat, so if somebody wants to come in and ask a question on camera, they can do so. But you know, be ready to go. But let's see. It says, what would be the motivating factor to his exoneration with the assumed conspiracy and the cover up?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the motivating factor is the fact that they created a whole case that was all fabricated, and it wasn't no real evidence against Wayne, and all the real evidence point to other people. You know. Yeah.
All right. We have Rox. How you doing, Rox?
Hey, how you doing?
Pretty good.
All right. I just got told on YouTube. This lady said, I said it was a white woman that really framed him and set him up. And the lady said, "Oh, really? It was a white? She's supposed to be an astrologist or something." First of all, you got his birthday wrong. You said he was a Virgo, and everybody knows he's a Gemini. How stupid are you?
Right.
It was crazy. Right. It's just ridiculous. He just set one man up. First of all, he got charged for 2 adults, none of the kids. So where's the evidence that he killed any of these kids? It's crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was no evidence even with the adults. They just so people know, Jimmy Ray Payne had been dead for months, and they actually brought Jimmy Ray Payne in after they had already arrested Wayne, and they changed the cause of death on Jimmy Ray Payne's death certificate. So the medical examiner was caught in a lie. The medical examiner said that he changed the reason because originally it said undetermined for the cause of death. And then once they created the narrative of the asphyxiation, they changed the cause of death to homicide. And they said that it was possible that Wayne killed him because he had carpet fibers on him, but the river, the Chattahoochee River, actually had a carpet mill. So all of the bodies that was found in the Chattahoochee River potentially had carpet fibers on it because it was a carpet mill that was actually dumping their waste right into the Chattahoochee River. You know, so when he was asked though at a press conference about this, he said he checked the wrong box, and it just so happened that the actual form was a typewritten form. So it was no box to check. It was actually written in with a typewriter.
All right. So, Rock, do you have any more questions?
No, I got a point to make. Also, when I just had it in my head, it just went away. But you know that they said Edwards, if they knew that he was doing stuff in Atlanta at the time, why didn't they also question him?
Right, because Ed Edwards was actually a GBI informant. What people, if I get to tell the truth about all of this, what people will understand and they'll come to know is that people like Ed Edwards were not only connected to state law enforcement, but they were actually connected to government projects. So Ed Edwards actually was a CIA operative, and they have people like Ed Edwards. You know about Kathy O'Brien. In Kathy O'Brien's book, she actually wrote about a man named Wayne Cox, right? That she had the baby from, that was actually a CIA black ops killer. You understand? So when we look at that time and we understand the 4-Pi movement, the Process Church, Jim Jones, Charles Manson, all of these things were concocted by the CIA.
That's crazy.
And what they wanted to do is they wanted to push a narrative that would separate society. Because at that particular time, because of everything that happened with the Vietnam War, the world was becoming more unified. People were starting to see how much of a disparity it was between the commoner in America and the elite. And they saw a brother from Chicago going to die next to a white boy from Gulfport, Mississippi. You understand? And they knew that it was an unjust war, and it was a war that was being fought to pad the pockets of billionaires. So when you go back and you look at what was taking place, it was a lot of white anti-war movements. It was a lot of things, messaging in the music. And you had white people singing about the war, just like you had Marvin Gaye singing about the war.
Yep.
You understand? And I know, fam, because Jimi Hendrix is my granddaddy's first cousin. They killed Jimi Hendrix because Jimi Hendrix had the respect of white America and Europeans, but he also was about to get down with the Black Panthers. One of the members of my family was actually a Black Panther.
Wow. I heard something like that. But I know what I wanted to say now. Mike McComas, he was one of the, what was he, a GBI or FBI or something? Also, Mike McComas, they also said that he said that when he first stopped Wayne, he had a nylon cord. Okay, so if you stop somebody and you feel that you need that evidence, why wouldn't you take the cord the first time?
Because he wasn't even there that night. That shit is a lie. The only agent that was there was a man named Agent Gilliland. It was Agent Gilliland, an Atlanta police detective, and then it was 2 recruits. It was only 4 people on the bridge that night. So
and they said that they were sleeping. And they said that they like fell asleep from time to time. So how the hell they know what hit the water?
Yeah, man, it's all a lie, man.
And he would keep his murder weapon on the seat next to him, you know, and the police. He's talking to the cops. He would be the dumbest fool in the history of dummies.
Yeah.
You know?
Steve,
and they wouldn't take it.
Steve just asked a real good question. He said, did Wayne have effective counsel? No, he didn't. Because Wayne shouldn't have never took the witness stand, and that's what got Wayne.
Yeah, Mary.
That's what got him prosecuted. And if somebody, now watch this, y'all. Mary Welcome was Wayne's attorney. Somebody on a high-profile case like that, their career is supposed to blow up after that. She disappeared in obscurity, and right now she working for the state of Maryland in some sort of legal job for the state of Maryland.
Oh, wow.
And she was a plant from my vantage point. She was a plant, and she ran the first attorney off. And she's the person that told Wayne, you need to fight back. So that infamous day when Wayne is on the witness stand and Wayne is saying, you want the real Wayne Williams? I'm here. He did that based on the fact that his fucking lawyer told him to do that shit. That's why Wayne to say, I went to prison because I was stupid. That's why he'll openly admit that. Because if he wouldn't have did that, they wouldn't have been able to prosecute him because they didn't have no evidence.
Nothing. So they was happy that he did that. But on the Atlanta Monster podcast, they also said they had like all of these people Payne, what's his name? Payne Lindsay and Donald Albright. They had all of these people. It's like a 10-series podcast, and they had different people. One guy, Rodney, testified that Wayne, the guy that stopped him, were trying to kidnap him, wasn't Wayne. Then you had another guy saying it was Wayne,
Right.
and he tried to kidnap him and his cousin, which I know they was paid on.
Yeah.
And then they had some lady on, I think it was part 6, like the end of part 6. They said they had a news footage saying that it was a Clayton County woman and her husband that was driving, and they seen a tall, light-skinned man with glasses on and a wig, and another short, darker man trying to kidnap a child in a car. They ain't never found this woman. They ain't never found her husband to even ask her. They said it was a green car. So where the hell is it?
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
All right.
It's
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rox. Tiffany's about to jump in. Thanks for sharing. All right, Tiffany, go ahead and grab the seat. You started to say something?
No, I thought Shannon said she had a question.
Hold on 1 second.
Tiffany. All right, so here we go.
My sound was acting stupid, so I jumped out and jumped. I'm trying to hide my work ID because I just got off.
Hey, Tiff.
Hey. This case has been like the craziest things because my aunt is deceased. My aunt has been deceased for years. She used to be a singer, and she wanted Wayne to produce for her. That's why I asked about his musical ties. Wayne was definitely very talented, but to me, it just seems like even now there's something he's not saying. I do not believe that he killed those children at all. And it's like a running joke in Atlanta. Anybody that's from here, if you talk to the people that are the old heads, they'll be like, that man didn't kill those kids.
Right.
But I think he was promised something. My aunt said two things strange about Wayne. He always had young boys around him. And she didn't think that was appropriate because here you have this grown man with all these boys.
Right. Right.
Out of his house, all hours of the night.
Right.
And the thing, Wayne came to her house in the middle of the night. It may have been, and this is part of my mom, because like I said, my aunt's deceased. My aunt's been deceased for years. Wayne came to her house in the middle of the night, banging on her door. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning. And he was like, I need to take the shower. I got mud all over me. He was like, no, you need to go somewhere.
Right.
You need to get away from my house. And she just thought that was crazy. My aunt never thought he killed those kids.
Yeah.
But my aunt thought that he was either promised fame or promised something to have the kids around.
Right.
So though I do not think he killed those kids, though he seemed, I know for a fact, just from talking to people in my family that knew him, he's very intelligent.
Yeah.
He's not saying something.
Right. Right.
We bring up Pizzagate, and when we bring up the music industry, is crazy. Because when you look, what I've noticed with these small record labels is that they will get these kids. They will get these kids and they will have them in the most horrific situation. They will drug them up, dope them up, put them in dangerous situations. Then when they die, guess who has an insurance policy on these kids? So that this case was a blueprint for Pizzagate and how they run their business. I truly believe that.
Right. Well, one of the things that did happen that I can tell y'all about is that when Wayne became a suspect, Tyrone Brooks, Hosea Williams, and Joseph E. Lowry came to his family house, and they told Wayne and his dad that if he took a plea deal, a 10-year plea deal, that the SCLC would give Wayne's family $1.5 million. And the other thing that he had to do was he had to select Ed Garland as his attorney. And sister, you from the city, so you already know who Ed Garland is. Ed Garland, for the people who don't know, Ed Garland is the same person who got T.I. a year, you know, when T.I. was supposed to be buried because he had a silencer, and Fed cases carry mandatory guidelines. So, I'm sorry?
10 years.
Yeah. And then he's the same person who got Ray Lewis off on the murder. Right? Now watch this, y'all. Them high profile people got off, but Mookie Blaylock is the same person who went to prison, and Mookie Blaylock had the same attorney. The reason being is because Mookie Blaylock wasn't making no white man no money no more. And that's what people have to understand. But in the situation with Ed Garland, I'm gonna show y'all how it works. And I'm saying shit that I shouldn't be saying, but I'm tired of these folks trying to suppress the shit that I know and trying to put other people in front of this movement. But I just said Ed Garland, and they offered that money, right? The woman, Mary Welcome, that ended up being Wayne's attorney, guess who she worked for before she became Wayne's attorney?
Ed Garland.
Ed Garland. So that's why I tell people from the gate, Wayne don't agree with me on it, but you know, it's a lot of shit that me and Wayne don't agree with, and me and him bump heads a lot. But you know, I ain't no sucker, and I don't care who. Like you can't manipulate me because I ain't no dummy. You know what I mean? And I'm a stand 10 toes on what I know to be the truth. But I really think from the gate, Mary Welcome was a plant, because she didn't do nothing effective to be his attorney for real, and he shouldn't have never been on the witness stand. That's what people need to understand about the case. He should have never been on the witness stand. All he had to do was let the little people who they paid to say, I saw him do this and I saw him with this person, let them go and say what they gonna say. You know, let them try to say what they gonna say about this carpet five and everything else, and then let his attorney, you know, give a defense. But he took the witness stand, and they used his ego against him.
It's definitely tied to this whole music thing that he's not saying. Definitely tied to this whole music thing that he's not saying. And at this point, I don't even know why he's still holding on to this information.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, like, it's certain stuff that I can't even say, because if you know, like with some of these people that's still alive, you know, like it's certain people that I know committed some of the murders, but I can't say their names because they still alive, and it's really illegal for me to do that, you know. But that's why, like, I could say Tom Terrell's name because he dead. I could say Jamie Brooks' name because he dead, you know. But the people who still alive, I can't say nothing about them because they still living, you know. And it wouldn't be right for me to say that, because I'm actually supposed to be representing Wayne Williams. If I wasn't representing Wayne Williams, it wouldn't hurt his case if I said it. But because I'm representing Wayne Williams, I've been advised by attorneys that I can't say certain things and I can't say certain names. But you know, you right about what you're saying. You know, and the thing about it is, what people got to understand is that Wayne was a Freemason, you know, and Wayne was recruited into the CIA Junior Officers Program out of high school. Wayne's uncle worked in the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is the government form of the CIA. So now when I tell people that it was actually people that were CIA operatives that was connected to this, one being Ed Edwards, again, I can say his name because he dead.
Right.
You know, but you know, Ed Edwards gonna go down as the most prolific serial killer in the history of this world if everything come out about him, because the man who I interviewed, if any of y'all seen that interview about Ed Edwards on YouTube, I'm the one who did that interview. And Buddy told me straight up he think Buddy killed like 700 and some people. and he was involved in the Zodiac murders. And the Zodiac killer wrote the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and told them, y'all know y'all got the wrong man, don't you? You know. But it's a whole lot of shit I could say. You know what I'm saying? That
I know way more than you think I do.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you do. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure you do. Most people that's in the city, like you said, they know a whole lot. You know, it's just that now that we got social media, they can't stop people from telling the truth about certain stuff, you know?
Yeah, they can't stop people from ending up murdered, like them sisters that tried to do the Stop the Violence initiative. The mothers executed.
Right.
There's another thing too that they touched on. It was a around the times of the Atlanta child murders. It was a daycare where the boiler supposedly blew up and 4 people died. Do you know anything about that?
And Born Home.
Yeah.
The KKK did that.
Oh, okay.
They put a bomb. They put a bomb in the daycare in one of the most well-known housing projects in Atlanta on Bankhead called Born Home, and they blew it up, and you know they got Maynard Jackson and some more, you know, the city officials to get up there and do a song and dance and say that it was a boiler, but it was really a bomb.
Yeah, you know, if you just use your half a brain, these things start making sense.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you so much, Tiffany, for coming in. You know, it's been a minute since we had a chance to talk to you.
A long minute.
And Steve asked me about the 25 additional murder victims from the list. You know, I did a video about that. It's on my YouTube page, Steve. So I'll get that to you, bro. Where
DeWayne, what's your YouTube name? It's just DeWayne?
No, my YouTube name is Kaba Ib Atun Ray. So that's actually my spiritual attributes. I'll probably have to I could actually put it right here for anybody.
Please do.
Yeah.
Because I was going to ask Shannon, can you write that to me?
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you. I'm like, you've been talking to him. I'm gonna need it from you.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I just put it on there. So that's my YouTube name right there. So I got a few videos about the Atlanta child murders up there. I got the interview that I did. I got pieces of the interview that I did with Emmanuel Williams. I got pieces of the interview that I did with Venus Taylor. I got a couple of videos that I did on my Facebook Live that I took off of Facebook, and I put them up on YouTube. And then also, I mean, the best thing to do is to find me on Facebook, to be honest with you, because that's where the most information is, on my Facebook page and the Wayne Williams Freedom Project. So anybody looking, y'all could, I just put my name on there on Facebook, you know, so anybody can find me there.
Let me say something too. So as I said, I was listening to the podcast, and DeWayne was definitely the person that was a standout. So I needed to find this brother, right? So I put in your name. I wasn't quite sure how to spell it, you know, because people spell it different ways, and even Hendrix, right?
Right.
But I was able to find the correct spelling of your name, and then, but I wasn't able to find how to contact you.
Right.
And then I found the Wayne Williams Freedom Project Facebook page.
Right.
And I normally don't try to book people through Facebook, right?
Yeah.
It's very informal, and it usually doesn't really work.
Right.
So, but I said, you know what? I'm gonna take a shot in the dark. I messaged him, and I think it was about 4 a.m. My time, Pacific time. He hit me back up, and I was like, oh shoot. And I think I was I awake? I might have been awake at that time. And then, you know, we had a brief conversation, text, and then we talked a couple of hours later, and then boom. That was Monday?
Yeah.
Was that Monday? Or yeah, it was pretty quick. Because I was planning on doing this. I wanted to do this on Friday because I wanted more time to get the word out. But you were going away, so Wednesday. This is actually even better. This is perfect. So I want to thank you so much. We're going to be running out of time here on Get Vocal, but we definitely
before we go though, I gotta plug, like, it's a lot of information in this book. Red Pill Alchemy Volume 1 is 405 pages. It'll change your life if you read it. I promise you. I got some information in there about Atlanta child murders, and then this is the first book that I wrote, 444 pages, Supreme Science, and there's a lot of information in there as well, and it's not just about the Atlanta child murders. It's a lot of stuff that we need to know collectively in both of my books. And anybody who, I tell people, ask me about donation. I don't want donation. Support my books. This is also a book that I wrote about my 12-year-old daughter now in 2014. And it's about a young girl learning to embrace her natural hair. So,
yes,
that's the support that I need. I don't do the donation thing because I don't believe in somebody just giving to me and not getting something in return. My grandma used to say, even swap ain't no swindle. You know what I mean?
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So the Red Pill book, can you hold that back up one more time?
Red Pill Alchemy, Volume 1.
So
the Matrix.
If you guys, if anybody in our chat room would like to have an opportunity to win that, press 1 in the chat. Let me get a 1 in the chat if you would like to get an opportunity to. Okay, I need some more 1s. Come on now.
My 1 in.
Come on now.
I mean, I was first.
Well, you're the co-host, so I'll get you. I'll just get you a book, Shannon. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. We want to make sure that people were paying attention. So let me think of a good question to ask to see if. And the first answer in the chat room, correct answer, will get the book. Let me see. What's a good one? Good question to make sure they were paying attention. Where is Venus Taylor? You need to complete the interview with her. Oh, okay. Okay. So let's see. Okay, I'll ask this question. Our guest, DeWayne Hendrix, how many books has he written? You can put it in the chat room. And I'll let DeWayne say who the winner is.
3 people said 3.
So that means Steve got it. He's the first.
Okay.
All right. So Steve, you are the winner. And I will get you your book. Please email me. This is my email address. Remind me, Steve, that you won and who you are. And I will make sure that you get your books. You get your book.
Can't say, since you buying me a book, can you buy me Ariel's crown instead, please? Thank you.
Okay. I will definitely do that. So I will definitely do that. So
you're missing out if you get that one, sister, especially if you on a show like this. You need to get that Red Pill Alchemy. I'm
gonna get Ariel's crown because I work with a lot of women, and there's something about the beauty of us appreciating.
We gonna get you both.
I can get back to that. Look, I can get back to that part later, but because of the line of work I do, that book is important.
Okay, we gonna get you both on then. So he gonna get you Red Pill. I'm gonna get you Ariel's crown. How about that?
Man, you a double winner.
Look, I give y'all my address.
All right, so we're running out of time as far as the recording is.
Okay.
So I'm going to start off with you, Brother DeWayne. How can people get you in social media? How can they get your books? And what should we be on the lookout for you in the future?
My book's on Amazon. So the same name that I put in, DeWayne Hendrix, is on Facebook. That's how they find me on Facebook. I also have a website. My website is supremescience99.com. I'll put it in here. And they can go learn about some of the things that I write about. I got a lot of good articles up there that will help people understand a lot more about the stuff that I write. And like I said, the books are on Amazon. If I had that URL, I would just put it in here. But to the people who already connected to me on social media, y'all just get at me, and I'll shoot you the link. And if you wanna get a autograph copy of the book, then that's a different process, because I actually have to put it in the mail to you. So but yeah.
Shannon, how can we get you on social media and all that good stuff?
You're not gonna ask Tiffany how we get her on social media.
Do you give out your social media, Tiffany?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. My bad. How can we get you on social media?
You're very rusty. Her side
I know,
hustle is
she's a little mysterious, though, Tiffany.
I just be working. There is nothing mysterious about overtime.
How can we get you, Tiffany?
I think all of my social media handles are Sherelle Wrights right now. Sherelle,
okay.
Trrell Wrights, like I write. On Twitter, on Instagram, and Facebook, it brings up my writing page.
All right, and these are writers too, by the way, DeWayne.
Okay.
Shannon, how can we get you?
same old. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Shannon / like the president - Jefferson like the president. And if you like poetry, Amazon.com for any of my 5 books.
Baby, what books? DeWayne, I don't know if you into poetry. I know we talking about something different, but when I in game is A1, you will not be disappointed.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
You can get you can get me at Kente F on Twitter, Kente Ferguson on Instagram, and of course the website is indyradio.org, indyradio.org. We've revamped it. Thank you, Jen, for hooking me up with the revamp. And so this will be up on the site coming up very soon, but of course you can check out the replay here. With all that said, we're going to talk about doing a part 2 soon as we can. And you guys have a great rest of your week, and God bless.
Peace.
Bye.
Thank y'all.